The baby switch scandal, Salem's most innocent. The devastating truth about Sophia Choi's, Rachel Boyd, elaborate adoption lies is rapidly approaching its breaking point, and the consequences promise to be absolutely catastrophic for everyone involved. What started as a desperate teenager's misguided attempt to protect herself has snowballed into Salem's most complex web of deception, involving forged documents, fake pregnancies, and heartbreaking emotional manipulation. The most tragic aspect of this entire ordeal is that none of this chaos is actually Sophia's fault. It's entirely the result of her controlling mother Amy Choi's, Irna Nielsen, relentless interference and manipulation. Amy's domineering behavior forced Sophia into making increasingly desperate decisions that she never would have considered if given the freedom to make her own choices. Amy Choi's destructive control led to this disaster. The root of this entire catastrophe can be traced directly back to Amy's suffocating control over her daughter's life. When Sophia and Tate Black, Leo Howard, made the mature decision to terminate the pregnancy, Amy ruthlessly blocked their choice, forcing her terrified teenage daughter into a corner with no escape. This wasn't parental guidance, this was psychological manipulation at its most destructive. Amy's helicopter parenting style has been nothing short of toxic throughout Sophia's entire pregnancy journey. Instead of supporting her daughter through an incredibly difficult time, Amy has consistently prioritized her own desires and cultural expectations over Sophia's mental health and well-being. The constant pressure and lack of autonomy drove Sophia to make increasingly desperate choices that no teenager should ever have to face alone. What makes Amy's behavior even more infuriating is how she completely derailed Sophia's future prospects. This controlling mother crushed her daughter's college dreams and carefully planned life trajectory, all while showing zero empathy for the emotional trauma Sophia was experiencing. The fact that Sophia missed both her prom and graduation because of her mother's interference speaks volumes about Amy's complete disregard for her daughter's happiness. The desperate birth that changed everything. The night Sophia gave birth alone in her bedroom represents one of the most heartbreaking moments in recent days of our lives' history. While her family was out enjoying a movie, this terrified teenager endured labor and delivery completely by herself, with no medical assistance and no emotional support. The sheer terror and isolation she must have felt is unimaginable, especially knowing that this entire situation was forced upon her by her mother's controlling demands. The birth itself was a stroke of fortunate timing that prevented an even greater tragedy. Had Amy been home that night, there's no telling what additional pressure and manipulation Sophia would have endured during such a vulnerable moment. Instead, she was able to make her own decisions, even if those decisions were influenced by months of psychological pressure from her domineering mother. What followed the birth showcases just how thoroughly Amy's control had damaged Sophia's ability to think clearly. Instead of calling for medical help or contacting Tate, Sophia's first instinct was to hide the evidence and dispose of the baby at the fire station's safe haven box. This wasn't the action of a malicious teenager, this was the desperate response of someone who had been psychologically conditioned to fear her mother's wrath above all else. Melinda Trask's misguided assistance compounds the crisis. District Attorney Melinda Trask's, Tina Huang, involvement in this deception represents a fascinating case study in how good intentions can lead to devastating consequences. Melinda's decision to help Sophia stems from her own traumatic experience as a pregnant teenager with strict Asian parents, creating a deeply personal connection to Sophia's plight. However, Melinda's assistance has transformed a simple case of teenage panic into a sophisticated criminal conspiracy. The fake pregnancy belly she provided Sophia is so convincing that even close family members haven't detected the deception. More damaging still are the fraudulent adoption papers she created, complete with false information about the baby's gender and fictional adoptive parents in Chicago. The Chicago post office box scheme represents the most elaborate aspect of their deception. This allows them to intercept any correspondence from Tate while maintaining the illusion that his son is living happily with adoptive parents hundreds of miles away. The psychological cruelty of this arrangement cannot be overstated. Tate believes he's sending letters and gifts to his daughter, while his actual son is being fostered just blocks away in Salem. What makes Melinda's involvement particularly troubling is her repeated pattern of adoption-related deceptions. This marks the second consecutive year she's been involved in fraudulent adoption schemes, raising serious questions about her judgment and professional ethics. Her willingness to risk her law license and freedom for someone she barely knows suggests deeper psychological issues that haven't been adequately addressed. The emotional devastation of Tate's unknowing encounters. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of this entire storyline is watching Tate interact with his own son without knowing the truth. The tender moments he's shared with baby Tesoro at the Brady pub, holding and comforting the infant he believes is just another child in need, represent some of the most emotionally devastating scenes in recent soap opera history. Tate's grief over losing his daughter is genuine and profound. He's been denied the opportunity to say goodbye to what he believes is his child, and his requests for visitation have been coldly rejected by the fictional adoptive parents. The psychological torture of this situation is amplified by the fact that his real son is thriving in foster care with Leo Stark, Greg Ricart, and Javi Hernandez, Al Calderon, just a short distance from where Tate lives his daily life. The irony of Tate's situation becomes even more painful when considering his natural parental instincts. Multiple witnesses have observed his immediate connection with baby Tesoro, noting how naturally he interacts with the infant and how the baby seems to respond positively to his presence. These moments of unconscious bonding between father and son add layers of tragic beauty to an already complex emotional landscape. The mounting evidence that will expose everything. The paper trail created by Melinda and Sophia's deception is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Hospital records in Chicago show no evidence of Sophia giving birth, while her medical information clearly indicates she delivered a son, not the daughter she claims to have placed for adoption. Dr. Sarah Horton, Lindsay Godfrey, has already connected these dots, though doctor-patient confidentiality currently prevents her from revealing the truth. The baby's appearance is also raising suspicions among observant Salem residents. Javi Hernandez has noticed the infant's Asian features, which seem to contradict the supposed background provided by the adoption agency. These physical characteristics are becoming increasingly difficult to explain away as more people interact with the baby. Rafe Hernandez's FBI investigation capabilities pose another significant threat to the deception. His access to hospital databases and adoption records could easily uncover the discrepancies in Sophia's story. The fact that he's Javi's relative and has regular contact with baby Tesoro makes this discovery almost inevitable. The psychological toll on Sophia's mental health. The emotional burden Sophia is carrying represents one of the most realistic portrayals of teenage trauma in recent soap opera history. Her guilt and anxiety are visible in every scene, as she struggles to maintain a deception that goes against every maternal instinct she possesses. The fake pregnancy belly serves as a constant reminder of her lies, while watching other people bond with her son creates unbearable psychological pressure. Sophia's breakdown when confronted by Dr. Sarah Horton demonstrates just how close she is to a complete emotional collapse. The relief she felt when finally telling someone the truth highlights the devastating psychological cost of maintaining such an elaborate deception. Unfortunately, doctor-patient confidentiality means this confession cannot provide the relief and resolution she desperately needs. The teenager's isolation throughout this ordeal is particularly heartbreaking. She cannot confide in her friends, her family, or even Tate without risking exposure of the entire scheme. This emotional isolation, combined with the guilt of separating a father from his son, is creating a perfect storm of psychological trauma that could have lasting consequences for her mental health. The inevitable explosion and its consequences. When this deception finally unravels, and it inevitably will, the emotional fallout will be unprecedented. Tate's discovery that his son has been living in Salem the entire time will likely trigger a custody battle that could tear apart multiple families. His anger at being systematically deceived about the most important relationship in his life will be absolutely justified and potentially overwhelming. Amy Choi will face the ultimate consequences of her controlling behavior when she realizes that her interference directly caused this entire catastrophe. The knowledge that her daughter's suffering and Tate's emotional trauma could have been completely avoided if she had simply respected their original decision will be a devastating blow to her maternal ego. The legal ramifications for Melinda could be career-ending. Her involvement in creating fraudulent documents and maintaining an elaborate deception while serving as district attorney represents a massive conflict of interest that could result in criminal charges, disbarment, and complete professional disgrace. The true victim in this heartbreaking story. Throughout this entire ordeal, it's crucial to remember that Sophia is the primary victim, not the villain. She was a scared teenager forced into an impossible situation by her mother's controlling demands and society's expectations. Every decision she made, from dropping the baby at the fire station to agreeing to Melinda's deception, was the result of psychological pressure and manipulation from adults who should have been protecting her. The real tragedy is that this entire situation was completely preventable. If Amy had simply respected her daughter's autonomy and allowed her to make her own reproductive choices, none of this heartbreak would have occurred. Instead, her need for control has created a web of deception that will ultimately cause more pain and suffering than the original decision ever could have. When the truth finally emerges, the focus should be on healing and forgiveness rather than punishment and blame. Sophia deserves compassion and support as she navigates the aftermath of decisions that were forced upon her by circumstances beyond her control. The real accountability must fall on Amy Choi, whose toxic parenting style created this disaster from the very beginning. The unraveling of this deception promises to be one of the most emotionally charged storylines in Days of Our Lives history, with consequences that will reverberate through Salem for months to come.